cousin who used to sneak into the backyard when he thought no one was looking to play with his action figures. He did this well into his teen years, and while he thought none of us knew what he was up to, he wasn't very sly about it. We'd often hear him making fighting sound effects and crafting his own dialogue. What always stood out to me, though, was that his action figures never fought each other. Instead, he'd match them against pens, pencils, crayons, and markers. He'd twirl a writing device in one hand while controlling a wrestler or comic book hero in the other. At the time, I thought it was weird. If he was going to play with toys like he was still 6, why did he need the pencils? I never asked him, and probably never will. But now, looking back, I realize how much creative energy he had. If he didn't feel the need to hide how he enjoyed spending his time, maybe something could have been done with that energy. Who knows the potential he had? Who knows why he was ashamed of his idiosyncrasies? But then again, aren't we all? I quickly lost interest in toys as a kid. Books, TV, and movies captivated me much more. I had a strong imagination and could easily get lost in any storyline. From a young age, I understood the most adult situations and never hesitated to ask my mom questions. She was always pretty blunt about adult realities, so while I preferred Nickelodeon, I could still keep up with The Practice and loved Stephen King movies. I'm not sure when it started, but my mom quickly realized that I wasn't just interested in the characters on TV, I was fascinated by the actors themselves. I was 6 or 7 when I told her, "Did you know Mona, the mail lady from Salute Your Shorts, is the voice of Chucky on Rugrats?" That's when she realized it wasn't just a celebrity crush, it was an investment. She asked me how I knew that, and I said, "They have the same voice." Around that time, I was introduced to televised award shows. My mom was an Oscar Sunday lady. She'd make a feast and sometimes print out ballots for guests to fill in before the ceremony. The first time she let me join the adults for an Oscar party, I watched an 11-year-old Anna Paquin beat out 4 adults to win a coveted trophy. My mom saw how amazed I was that a kid could win something so major, and shortly after, she got me a People magazine with highlights from the night. I became obsessed with award shows and would watch any that aired. The idea of one award changing someone's life forever was so gut-wrenching. Every year I'd pick my favorites, and if they lost, I was devastated. If they won, I was elated. As an adult, I cried for hours when Monique won her Oscar. But as a kid, I'd buy TV Guide and People magazines, making collages of my favorite celebs. I became a fountain of knowledge, remembering facts no one else seemed to care about. At some point, I started creating my own fantasy award shows. I'd cut little pieces of paper, writing various celebrities' names on them, and spread them across the floor in their respective categories. Once everything was organized, I'd decide who should win what. I made endless lists of my made-up awards, and my mom never criticized me. As long as it kept me entertained, she didn't mind. So, I got to play openly, doing what I loved. When my grandmother was dying, I spent a lot of time alone in their game room. It was attached to their house in New Mexico by a little wooden bridge that went across the backyard. The room had a pool table, a bed, and a TV with a VCR. When it felt like I was being confined, I used the pool table to create elaborate paper award shows. Each pocket would hold nominees for certain categories, and I'd lay them out, pretending to be the host. It helped keep my mind focused. After my grandmother died, my grandfather remarried quickly. His new wife, Mary Esther, wasn't particularly kind. One day, when I was over, she marched me back to the game room and chastised me for the little folded pieces of paper she found all over the room. She had no sympathy for me as a kid dealing with trauma in my own way, and I didn't care to understand why I had all these folded squares. She just wanted to shame me. I never played with paper that way again. Years later, when I was a sex worker dealing with trauma again, I recalled how those little pieces of paper used to calm me. They distracted me. They made me feel safe. So I started doing it again. This time, I didn't cut out anything. I'd just write lists and lists of nominees, creating various themed award shows in notebooks. It wasn't productive, but it gave me the mental break I needed to cope with my PTSD. I often left these notebooks in my bathroom, and my friends found them. They asked me about them, and I was honest. We started calling them my poop lists, which admittedly made it sound like I was cataloging my bowel movements. But that would be too weird even for me. None of my friends judged me. If they ribbed me, they quickly saw how uncomfortable it made me, and they'd stop. It became just something I did without feeling ashamed, a coping mechanism. Until one day, Katie and I were at a dispensary, and she casually told one of the workers about my infamous poop lists. I was furious. I didn't know what to say, so I just bluntly asked her to never share my list with strangers again. She didn't realize that I still harbored shame for such a weird hobby. She apologized and didn't bring it up again, except to encourage me in a more positive light. A few months into the pandemic, I kept making my lists regularly, but one day I realized they'd become a chore. They no longer provided me the comfort they once did. It felt fruitless, so I stopped. I left behind dozens of filled notebooks written in various colored inks, lists of celebrities, shows, movies, years of trauma avoidance now sitting in a drawer. I wasn't sad about it. I felt proud that I decided to spend my alone time more constructively addressing my issues rather than avoiding them. Then one morning I woke up to find a colorful collage hanging above my front door. Katie had taken the old poop lists and turned them into a beautiful piece of art. It was a trophy, a reminder of how something that once made me feel safe had shaped me into who I am today. It was the first real piece of art that truly represented me. And to make sure the message was clear, Katie covered her chest in black paint and stamped her tits over the top of it because fuck shame. Live as free as you can.